Adam didn't follow the proper channels on getting the file. Thank you, sir.
Good. My fellow Rotarians, it's high noon. I'd like to go ahead and start the meeting. Greg Palmer will lead us in the prayer, pledge, and four-way test.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to get together today, share our love of service and our love of giving back to our community. Look down on us and bless us with health and vigor and help us to do your work in the world. In your name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test of what we think, say, or do. First, second, third, fourth. We got a bell again. How about
What do you
that?
think of that, Greg? Is Sean Carroll in the house today? I do not see our beloved Sergeant at Arms. I will do a brief Sergeant at Arms report. The Reds looked really good over the weekend against the Phillies. Took 2 out of 3. We're still optimistic on a wild card position. It's an honor today to have our district governor here. Our club has done a phenomenal job. I'd like to recognize a few of our past district governors. Dennis McAvoy was one of our past district governors. Then we've also had, we also have Greg, you were an assistant district governor, correct?
I was.
Yes, not anymore.
I got kicked out.
Well, that's what happens.
Now it's you.
But Gil, it's an honor to have you here. It's great to have somebody from Northern Kentucky as assistant governor. Please help me welcome our new district governor, Michael Noster.
Hello, I'm going to take this microphone. Do you care if I hold it? It's scary sometimes for my friends when they give me a microphone or at least they say that because they have no idea what I'm going to say. But anyway, it's great to be able to make it here today. Actually, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it because I sat in traffic for 45 minutes on 75 south of the Kentucky River, and it was not moving. So, and I know traffic up here is not much fun either. But anyway, it's great to be out and still having some visits. And one of the things that I think all of us can take to heart right now is that it's probably one of the best times ever to be a Rotarian. And the reason why I would say that is because of the discourse that we see right now. And I think you just get the paper, you look at it, you look at the news, what people are saying, and people don't treat everybody very well. And this has been going on now for a while, and we're in the middle of COVID, and people are arguing whether or not you should wear masks or whether or not you should be vaccinated. And then they get in arguments, and Facebook is crazy. But as Rotarians, we're kind of accountable. We have the 4-way test, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But when you think about all the different industries that we represent and what Rotary really brought together, we've got people that represent these different industries that our youth can look up to, and that folks, that aren't Rotarians need to see as examples the way people in business should be treating each other and acting. So it's kind of a tough thing to some degree that we have the standard, but I would tell you that right now we're very much needed in our workplaces and in the environments in which we serve. So thinking back to service above self, and for me and joining Rotary, I moved to Somerset, was not a Rotarian. This is in the fall of 2006. And I worked for BB&T, which you all have up here. And so, I don't know, I hadn't been there but a couple months, and they said, well, you need to join the Rotary Club. Actually, you need to join the morning Rotary Club. And I said, well, okay, there's 2 clubs here. Why am I having to join the morning club? Because one meets at noon. And they said, well, Megan, who works for us, is already a member of the noon club, so you can be a member of the morning club. Now, a couple of people have already heard me tell part of the story, but anyway, so I was like, well, okay, I guess I'll go do that. And then they said, oh, and by the way, they meet every week. And I said, they meet every week at 7 a.m. This isn't something that I really had planned on doing. Now, today, I work for the Fort Group. And of course, Chip Regenbogen is a member or a past member of your club and has worked for Mr. Fort. So it's not such a big deal now that we meet every week at 7 a.m. because if I was not at Rotary, I'd be at work. So it just kind of has worked out, now. But anyway, so I got to get involved in some of the things that we were doing with that morning club, and it's very active. And one of the things we did 3 times, we actually had remote area medical clinics that came to Pulaski County. And so I'm not sure if those of you in Northern Kentucky are kind of familiar with it, but it was based out of Knoxville. There's a gentleman that ran these pretty much all over the world, quite frankly. He would go to Central and South America, other rural parts of the United States. And so people who didn't have especially dental care primarily, they didn't have dental care, they didn't have vision, and they needed eyeglasses. They'd have these remote clinics. And so we set up 3 of them, and they told us ahead of time that people would travel for hours to come to this. And so I was like, well, how far are they going to come? And we got registrations ahead of time, and people would come from Ohio or Indiana or West Virginia, and then they'd get in line. They got in line the night before so they could get this done. And so there's a lot of teeth pulling that happened at these events. And so to think about somebody that comes in and they get 2 or 3 teeth pulled, and as soon as they're pulled, they feel relief, less pain, and they're, just so excited to have that done. It's hard to believe that there are people that were walking around that were not able to get the dental care that most of us get. So we had these 5-gallon buckets. Now, these weren't plastic paint buckets. They were, I guess, approved like they are if you see needle boxes or whatever. But you could tell how successful these clinics were by how many teeth were in one of these 5-gallon buckets at the end of the weekend. So, but anyway, we did have 3 of those. And the last one happened after the Affordable Care Act went into effect. And so we really weren't sure what kind of turnout we would end up with. But actually it wasn't quite as strong, but it was close to it, which was kind of a surprise given the fact that there's so many free things that people can, they can find. But it seems like healthcare was one of the things they did not go seek out as much as some of the others. So we still had a really decent turnout. The second thing that about service that it's not Rotary related, but our son, during his high school years, he had to go on a mission trip. So I joined him on a trip down to Guatemala. And so several church groups in our area had gone to some of the same villages that we were slated to go to on this visit. And they would come back and tell us about going to this Mayan village, and they had to wash kids' hair and wash kids' feet. And so I don't like feet, okay? It's just something that I don't like feet. I think they're dirty, whatever. And I'd hear these stories of them coming back and talk about washing these people's feet. And I'm like, this is crazy. Who would really want to do that? And so we got to the village, and we were set up, and we were kind of dividing up who was going to do everything. And so they said, we need people to wash feet. And so I said, okay, I will wash feet. And knowing that I really didn't like feet, and I did wear gloves, so I wasn't entirely crazy. But I got to where these kids, and they were really cute kids. And it was kind of a surprise. Some of them had better shoes than others, but all their feet were not clean. But I don't speak Spanish. And so I would start tickling their feet while I was washing their feet. And, we were able to communicate a little bit. I picked up a few words, but, not anything that important. But what was important was taking care of those kids. And so I would just tell you that thinking about that service and the humility, because Jesus washed people's feet. And it was a very humbling experience. But yet, it's one that I'll never forget. And I'm really glad that I was able to get over that fear and do it. So thinking about this year and what Rotary International President Sheikh Mehta and our theme is serve to save lives. See, I just did it. It's serve to change lives. And I really didn't mean to do that, but I've done it because when I think about serve to change lives and what we do, we really end up saving some lives along the way. And right now, it's really important with the things we have the opportunity to accomplish. So one of his things is empowering girls, and this initiative can come in a lot of forms, but of course, he's from India, and countries in that part of the world have a lot of their young ladies who don't get to finish school. And so I think that's where primarily part of his focus is going to be on education, to try to get them the tools to allow them and their families keep those young ladies in school to finish, because it means so much more to their families and long-term, it's the economy and different things like that. If they can finish, their life opportunities are much greater. Here in the United States, we may not have the same educational issues, but we do have other ones. And, human trafficking is still a big issue, and it's probably growing. And you don't have to wait till Derby time to see something on the news about trafficking in Louisville. I mean, it happens here. 75 runs up and down Kentucky. And so it's something to think about, that our clubs have the ability to do something. And so we're having RILA again this year. It's going to be in April. It's only going to be one day. But one of the goals this year is really, and we've done this several times unintentionally, but we really want at least half of the kids that come to RILA this year to be girls. It would be great if it's more than half, quite frankly. But you'll have the opportunity as you prepare for April to try to find some kids that are in the 8th grade that you could potentially sponsor for this. And Chris Hickey is going to be the chair of that again this year. And past district governor Dean is the other individual that's in, Dean Hammond is the other one that's involved in it. So I wanted to wrap up thinking about the four-way test again. And so when I started this journey, because as Dennis can attest to, that this is not a one-year thing, it takes several years to get through. And it's probably why, after I was AG, I took several years that I wasn't really that involved. I mean, I was involved in the club, but I didn't do anything else. So at one of our conferences, one of the summer zone meetings we had in Decatur, Alabama, before I went, I was like, well, I want to study some on the four-way test. I want to learn more about this. And so there's a gentleman by the name of Herbert Taylor who came up with this in the 1930s. And he was he was put in charge of trying to reform or rebuild a manufacturing company in the Chicago area. So, the business had struggled. He was probably trying to, turn it around. And so he thought it was important to bring some people together on his management team to come up with some guiding principles. And so he brought several of these folks together, and he tried to get them from different backgrounds. So he had an Orthodox Jew, a Catholic, a Christ Scientist, and a Presbyterian. Now, in today's environment, those four individuals probably aren't that diverse in their thinking, but they probably were in the 1930s, or a little bit different than we are today. And so they came up with this, and by the 1940s, Rotary had adopted it in about 1943, I think. And then Mr. Taylor later became RI president in the mid-50s. So I was kind of proud of myself. I had this information, and somebody was sitting next to me. I was telling them about it. I think I don't know who it was. I think Keith Key was there at the table, and there was somebody else, and I was talking about this background. And so when I got done, this other gentleman at the table, 2 seats over, says, yeah, Mr. Taylor was my grandfather. It was Al Mathis, who was from Northern Alabama. And so, of course, I was really proud that I had the story. And of course, he could have told the story himself. But I had to make sure, did I leave anything out, or, is what I said, accurate? But really the point is, this is something that's been around for a long time, and it's rather important. And it's not just something that you come here every week and you say, but it starts to kind of get in your heart a little bit. It gets into what you're doing at work. It gets into kind of what you do in everyday life. And so I think that time is now for us to really think about this, to wrap it back to the beginning of what I was saying, that we have these opportunities, and is it just time to come here and sit and meet every week and maybe have, lunch or whatever with a few friends, but there really is much more to it. And because if we're not kind of doing those things, I mean, it's kind of, what's the point to me, is to some degree, but there are so many things that are needed. And, even in Kentucky, and up here, you may not see it as much, but, we're working on these sewer projects in Eastern Kentucky because there's straight pipes that are out there that need to be repaired and replaced with real sewer. You don't have to go around the world. You don't have to go to Guatemala like I was talking about earlier. It's even here. And so that's really my challenge, that right now, when our kids really need us, when their educational, situation, who knows what it's going to be like over the next 60 days? Are they going to go back to where they have to go virtual all again, and they're with a caregiver, a grandparent, or a parent who doesn't have the skills to work the remote learning? Or they have to drive somewhere to get in a parking lot to get Wi-Fi? These kids got behind. And so as a result of that, we've got this Building Brighter Futures project that we're trying to get set to go for January. And it's a backpack project. And at the beginning, knowing that it really didn't matter the socioeconomic background where kids came from, my thoughts were really large. How do we do something that affects so many kids? But we had to narrow it down. And for about 18 to 20 bucks, we've got a child-sized backpack with a mask, a refillable water bottle, some hand sanitizer, but it's also got a book, because literacy is very important. And so the books that we've got for this, the publisher has given us a price of half off. So it's about $5 or $6 a book. So these aren't like going and getting a little golden book at Walmart. You know, this is something that's going to be a little bit more geared and have some important things. Bullying is a topic of one of them. But we really want to get these out into the hands of classes, first grade classes, where we can throughout the district. And so, you know, the challenge is to try to find a school or a class that we can sponsor, because every kid in that class is going to get one, because we're not going to pick. It's not going to be like the food programs and things like that. We don't want any stigmas around it at all. But we know that all of the kids have been affected. And so that's a project that we're working on for January. So you'll hear more about that. So I'll wrap it up with that. But I really appreciate you all letting me come today and speak to you. And I'll open it up if anybody has any questions. Yes, sir.
Mike, expound on what Rotary in general is facing right now in terms of pandemic. Today, the fact that it's a district, but how the changes might be coming about in Rotary in general.
Yeah, so some things, the Dennis's question revolved around what's going on with Rotary with regard largely to the pandemic environment we're in, and then maybe some potential future changes in the organizational structure. So last year, we did end up with a mandate. I'll stand here so you can see me. We ended up with a directive, I guess, from Evanston that there was no travel. So that's why you probably didn't get a visit from District Governor James Glass. And if you did, it may have been virtual. And then at the end of the time for John Hutchings, we were kind of in that similar situation. So we had to cancel some events that we had. We had PETS, which is the president's training. We did that virtually. My training was virtual, which normally back in Dennis's day, they went to San Diego, and my class is going to be the first one in Orlando. But so we did that virtually. Right now, we do not have a directive from Evanston that there can be no travel. So, but my thinking as things have continued, and if this continues, we could be in that scenario again. Now, I think that they're purposely making that decision slowly and not coming out too fast because they want to give maybe a little bit more autonomy this time than what they did the last time. But as you know, it's not just in the United States that the virus has grown so much. I mean, it's growing in a lot of other countries as well. So we'll see how that progresses. As far as changes, there's been a proposal really to redo the zones, maybe collapse some together, collapse some districts, and to the degree that the district governor role itself might change or potentially could be eliminated because you end up with just zone people. So I don't really know at this point if they've taken that any further. You know, I know that they've talked about it some at the Council on Legislation, and you know, but I just know that it's been presented, and I haven't gotten anything recently to kind of update where they are on that. Any other questions?
I just want to make a comment. I attended RLI this past weekend, and Judy and Martha did a great job of that. I've enjoyed both from now in our area, but from all virtually. Just kudos to them.
I will let them know. Yeah, we did do RLI virtually again, and we were able, you know, it's cheaper to do that, number one. And so we were able to cover the costs for people who wanted to do it. I anticipate that when we do it the next time, we may do it yet again virtually. Because if we're still in this pandemic, which we are going to be, it's still, I was there for the last RLI for some of the sessions, and I think the interaction was close to what it was in person. It was probably better than what most people would have expected. So I think that you could still get the information out to everybody and still do it in that fashion. So last call, yes.
What's the approximate cost of sending one student about?
I think it's $295. I had written that down the other day. So we pre-funded, and the question was what the cost is for RILA. So we have a line item in the district budget to cover part of the cost. And so then the additional cost is the $295. My hope is that we could really end up with more than 40 kids, because I'd like to have 2 groups. And what that really means is that we would have to have some more Rotary volunteers to be there that day, because the folks that are on staff, I think we'd have enough of that are at the location where the event occurs. But I think, right now, to get kids into that kind of a program, especially kids that, whose parents may not be able to send them to something like that, but you've got these kids that have skills that, their schools have identified that may not get those experiences. This is a great opportunity for them. It's a great chance for us to help change a life, right?
Is it great?
Eighth grade. All right, well, I appreciate it once again. Thank you all for having me.
Mike, on behalf of the Florence Rotary, we do appreciate you coming up, and we do have some parting gifts just to say thank you. There's a baseball team here on I-75. They recently changed ownership, and they did an extensive market research on what they were going to name the team. So after all of these marketing dollars, they came up with the Florence Y'alls. And it's interesting, the recall rate on that is international. So you can be in Paris and ask where you are, where you're from, and you'll say, Florence. Oh, Florence, y'all. So on behalf of the mayor and the city of Florence and Florence Rotary, I'd like to offer you the official Florence Y'all bobblehead. Should we do a photo op here?
My son's gonna love that.
Then also I stopped by and got you an official Florence Y'all's baseball t-shirt. And it's interesting, it has the state of Kentucky logo, and it says, United we ball, Florence with you all. So,
Thank you.
in the official Y'all baseball hat.
Thank you.
You go, it fits. It's an honor to have our district governor here with us. Gil, if you'd like to come up and say a few words. They have a fundraiser coming up September 2nd, which looks awesome. Gil?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm your new assistant governor, and I'm going to be growing into this role and seeking advice from one of your elite members, and that would be Greg Palmer, because he's done such an excellent job. I became a Rotarian in 2017, and shortly thereafter, I got to meet Greg. So I'm going to be tapping him for some ideas. In the meantime, before I leave today, if I could have the name of your membership chair and or any members of that membership committee. And that's going to be my first thing to address as assistant governor, to see how we can grow our 3 Northern Kentucky clubs. Zoom has taken a toll on many of our clubs, and that need not be the case anymore. In many ways, we're gaining renewed vigor because of the COVID. And if you can do that for me, you're going to be hearing from me again. In the meantime, how many of you are golfers? Okay, I want to share something with you, and maybe you're going to be able to help me. I don't golf, but I did play a little baseball. And somewhere over the internet, there was a post last week that if you saw, I want you to share with me. Somewhere in the minors, a gentleman steps up to the plate and he's accompanied by his caddy and his golf bag. No kidding, this happened. Did any of you see it? All right, and so if you could repost that to me, I can't find it. And so he has the caddy assist him in choosing his bag. And I just thought it was one of the funniest things I'd ever seen. And evidently, whatever the narrative was funny as well. So did you guys find it funny, the three of you who saw it? I thought it was pretty interesting. You didn't think it was funny. Well, have you ever seen that done before? No, I hadn't either. Probably never see it again. But thank you for letting me be your assistant governor. I hope we'll be hearing soon if we're going to be meeting in Chattanooga. Maybe we'll know soon if we're going to be meeting in Houston. It's a difficult time. How many of you would like to go to the international conference if it is held in Houston? I think so. It's our perfect opportunity after losing out on a couple. So I look forward to seeing you. Please feel free to visit our club anytime. We're Zooming. Julie's been so good to get the word out on your programs. And I want to thank you for that. It seemed to have gone seamlessly, but I'm sure that's not the case. I'm sure you had some glitches in there somewhere, but thank you. Thanks again.
Give us about the national and divine.
National and
Your fundraising. Tell me.
I don't have all the specifics on it.
Just Kenton County. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't visited Kenton County yet in this capacity. So yeah, thank you.
Okay.
All right. No problem.
While on the subject of fundraisers, Kenton County, has a great fundraiser coming up September the 10th. Should be a great fundraiser. They're going to have 4 Nashville performers at the Vineyard, and I'm not exactly familiar with the Atwood Hill Vinery, but it looks great. Adam Howard would like to come up and do a presentation for the clay shoot. This is becoming one of our premier fundraisers. We raised over $7,000, and Adam and his team have done an absolutely phenomenal job.
Thank you, Dwayne. Billy Santos, I know you're out there in Zoom world, so thanks for sending me some figures here recently. Actually, we raised over $8,300 was our gross this year, which was the most we've ever raised. For our visitors and guests, we have a clay shoot where we go out and have a good time trying to shoot the clays as they go in the air. For every dollar that we collect from this particular fundraiser, we get to keep, if you will, that goes to the foundation about 97 cents. So we do pretty well on that clay shoot. One of our sponsors for the clay shoot is Mr. Brad Hamblin. So we've invited Brad to come here today so that he can receive, come on up, Brad. I want you to come up here so that you can receive your plaque for the Wilkinson Memorial Clay Shoot 2021 sponsor. So Brad, thanks for coming out today. We appreciate you. And I saw a piece of paper with your name on it over there too. Is that right?
It might be an application.
Might be an application. All right, welcome. Thank you.
Couple of birthdays, Rick Hayden and Bill. Happy birthday, no anniversaries this week. Next week is our Citizen of the Year. This is one of our premier events. Looking forward to a great presentation from Paula. If you do want a free lunch, Rotary is sponsoring lunch, and you do need to sign up today. Today is the deadline. I'm still in contact with the Florence Freedom. I would still like Rotary to help sponsor the September 11th, 20th anniversary memorial service. I haven't got all the details, so I will let you know as soon as I hear all of that. Last week I made it incorrect. Greg Palmer is going to host us graciously for a Rotary family picnic. And that is going to be the last Sunday of the month. And that will be September the 26th. Just a reminder, we're going to have a board meeting after the meeting. And I do like to end the meeting with a quote or a kind of a motivational moment. And I read this the other day and I thought it was so inspiring. It says, I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the community. As long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it whatever I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. For the harder I work, the more I live. Life is no brief candle to me, a sort of a splendid torch, which I have to get a hold of for a moment. And I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it to the next future generation. Guys, make it a great week.